Hello. Good evening in India, good morning in US. Uh, Warm welcome to all of you on behalf of John C. Martin Center for Legal Research and Innovation. Today we are observing John C. Martin's birthday, first time in his absence. And we are also going to start John C. Martin Memorial Lecture from this year. May I request Dr. Abhijit Chaudhary for his opening remarks and also to conduct this proceedings. Abhijit.
Uh, as just now Partho welcomed you to this birthday occasion of our beloved Dr. John C. Martin. On behalf of John C. Martin Center for Legal Research and Innovations, as all of us who are attending this meeting today, all of us have got a very heavy heart. This is not the way exactly in which we had thought of celebrating or remembering John on his birthday. John C. Martin Center for Legal Research and Innovations, we started envisioning the institute, and we had this thought that we would attach this institute, which is, we dreamed this to be, and John used to dream with us, or John made us dream like that only. The way John made many people in the world dream like that only, to be doing best of research and would serve people from all segments of society. When we started thinking like that, and we thought that this will be in John's, we will attach John's name, we were really hesitant in the beginning how to approach him. I still remember that day. With his ever-present humility and the way John used to work, as we could see, we were not confident that way that John would allow us to lend his name. And I think it's in Lily's persuasion that John finally agreed. And today we are possibly one of the I should say, we are the institute that bears John's name. And I'm sure there will be many centers, institutes in the world which will carry John's dreams, John's thoughts, which will try to replicate the way John used to reach out to ailing humanity where that person lies. I really don't have many words to express the indebtedness, the gratefulness, because words don't provide us the space to say how and what all we owe John. And I just want to mention that, to me, John Martin is a global citizen. He was born in the United States, but I would love to consider him to be an Indian citizen. He's a global citizen. Because citizenship, the way we define is all too superficial. And the way John C. Martin used to love everybody out here. We, in Indian terminology and in Bengali terminology, we call an elder brother Dada. And out here, everybody wants to call John as John Dada, the way we used to mention like that. When I used to meet Omunda or Partho, we used to tell John Dada. It's like the way the word we use to meet to welcome the elder brother. So John remains an eternal John Dada for all of us. And again, we all of us we keep on sharing the agony that all in John's large family. John has got a family that is spread all across the world, and he has got a nuclear family also. And to us at John C. Martin Center for Liver Research Innovations, John C. Martin and Lillian Lu are just inseparable. And I'm sure I really cannot think the way the day John, we got the message that John is no more. We just we're trying to find ways how to reach out to Lily, to be by her side from a distance, share her agony, her pain, which is all of our pain. But we know the way she felt, and we could bear that from distance. At John C. Martin Center for Liver Research and Innovations, we are organizing this meeting of remembering John on his birthday, and we are joined by many friends from India and abroad. We are also grateful on behalf of John C. Martin Center for Liver Research and Innovations and Liver Foundation West Bengal to all of you who have joined us. But it's all extended family that John has only created. We are all, just now Partho mentioned that we have decided the day we lost John, we have decided that we will, John C. Martin Center for Liver Research and Innovations will have a yearly John C. Martin Memorial Oration. We will all let you know when that's going to happen. And John C. Martin Center for Liver Research and Innovation was planned by John. He sat with us when last time he came, and he laid the foundation stones, and all these were set up. We are going to make it the way John dreamt of. That remains our promise to him wherever he is. So with that, I would stop here, and I would welcome again on behalf of John C. Martin Center and Liver Foundation, I would welcome all of you, and I would request our other colleagues and friends to express their feelings, their tributes to our beloved John Dada on his birthday. So, to begin with that, I would request Mr. Dilip Sanghvi, who is a member of board of John C. Martin Center for Liver Research and Innovations. In fact, John wrote to Dilip Bhai, and I think all of us know Dilip Sanghvi is chairman and managing director of Sun Pharmaceuticals, but to us, he is a member of our board. I would request Dilip Bhai to say a few words, and that becomes Indian pharmaceutical industry's tribute to John C. Martin. Dilip Bhai is the person who is going to express his feelings on this evening. Dilip Bhai, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. I am humbled to be speaking to all of you on the occasion of John C. Martin's 70th birthday. And wish to kind of restate what you exactly said, is that not only Dr. Martin was a great leader of our industry, but an exceptional human being as well. If I look at his uh, life's success, is that he led Gilead for almost 20 years and developed Gilead into a powerhouse it is today. He started his journey as a research executive in Bristol Myers Squibb to later join Gilead and joined them as a vice president of R&D. But within a short period of time of 6 years, he became the CEO and he guided the dramatic success of Gilead, initially in treatment and potential cure of HIV, but subsequently other viral diseases like hepatitis C. And I am sure that team after him continues to work on other currently inadequately treated viral diseases. In my interaction with John, I found him to be an exceptional thinker who always kept big picture view in perspective, which enabled him to lead Gilead so successfully over the years. But as a person, he never rested on his laurels and he pushed his executive team and himself after, after every success to go on to do more ambitious things. When FDA approved the first HIV drug from Gilead, on that day itself, he pushed his team in Gilead to find a cure for hepatitis C. So it is his ability to dream big and his ability to invest in people as well as in solving unsolved problem is what I have seen differentiates him from other leaders that I interact with. But his success in business is not the only thing which I remember and recognize about John. He is one of the finest human being that I have known, and whatever that I know and understand about philanthropy and humanitarian effort, a large part of this is learned out of my interaction with him. His focus on ensuring that life-saving drugs have access to people across all parts of the world and not only to patients in countries which have financial resources. He started what I think the industry has come to recognize as a great contribution of giving voluntary license to companies who could commercialize the products developed by Gilead most of the time royalty free in all the underdeveloped countries of the world. And this way, he has made many life-saving drugs available to countries like India as well as other developing countries. And patients in these countries remain ever grateful to John for his foresight and his desire to contribute to human reducing human suffering. Like Dr. Chaudhary talked about, his active involvement in ensuring that the institute that is named after him in Calcutta comes and sets an ambitious agenda for itself. In the same way, he's been actively involved in many other philanthropic as well as innovation focused institutions who are grateful to him for his direction as well as support. In my interaction with him, I have found him to be a great, what I would call mentor for entrepreneur. And he always, when I interacted with him, challenged me, and he forced me to look at problems and opportunities very differently from the way in which I used to look at it. And what I am today in terms of my understanding of drug discovery and how to work towards solving problems, a great deal of credit goes to him. But the key messages that I have of my interaction has been that extreme humbleness and down-to-earth attitude. He never demonstrated any of his success when he interacted with people. And the other important issue is when I interacted with him, I learned is to take a holistic view of impact that the business can bring, not only for its shareholders, but to the society as a whole. It has, and I have learned a great deal. Hopefully, I can implement some of this during my lifetime. It's been my honor to have known Dr. Martin. Through my interaction with him have been limited. I surely consider him to be a great role model who I have always looked up to. Thank you.
Thank you, Dilip Bhai, for joining us. The building where we are having this meeting today, the foundation stone was laid by John 2 years back, and we all wish John visits us as he used to visit us at regular intervals. And we keep on thinking and we keep on feeling that he is visiting us. And I'm standing beside John, who is dressed up all in flower and flowers only. This is not the way we all would have liked John to be looking at us, telling us to go ahead. So it's an emotional attachment with all of us. And I think many of us share that attachment and that feeling. in different ways. So today is really, while today is his birthday for us, the birthday could have come to us in a different way. But nature makes things not exactly the way we would like to make that happen. And that's why we are having this day organized and all assembled in a different environment. So I would now request Dr. Henry Masood, who is head of critical care medicine at National Institute of Health, Bethesda, Maryland. Dr. Masood is a long-time friend and has worked long with Dr. Martin, and obviously, his attachment with John would span decades, I'm pretty sure. So over to you, Dr. Masood, to tell us your feelings, your tributes for us. And we are all united today, India or United States. Over to you, Dr. Masood.
Well, thanks very much for the opportunity to say a few words. I'm particularly pleased that Lily could be part of this 70th birthday occasion. Some of the themes that you just touched on, John's genuineness, the fact that John has not changed in the 25 plus years that he's been so successful, are really themes that I'd like to emphasize as well about what started as a different kind of relationship when John was presenting his material to the FDA panels that I was a chair of, to being a colleague and ultimately a friend of John. I first met John in 1996 when Gilead was presenting its first drug, which was Cidofovir, to the FDA for approval to treat CMV retinitis. In that era, he always traveled with Howard Jaffe. And when he and Howard would come to present to the FDA, I was always impressed that the chief executive officer of Gilead, the man who had invented ganciclovir, was trying to save time and money and would always take what we would call the red eye from California so that he could get to this important meeting just in time at 8 a.m. And leave on the afternoon flight. So he didn't waste any time. At that point, he was very concerned about not wasting any money. Despite the fact that he was on that kind of schedule, he always seemed so calm and was always impressive that he would stand in the back of the room, listen to his team present. They do a wonderful job, and of course, persuade the FDA and all the clinicians that his data was solid and that his drug warranted approval. As I met John then, from sort of one side of the table, listening to what he had to say when he was presenting to NIH or the FDA, over the next few years, I would meet John in the most unlikely of places. At major meetings when most of the CEOs wouldn't come to this scientific meeting, or if they did, they would be at the plenary sessions talking to important leadership in the fields of HIV or influenza or hepatitis. John would be hanging out at the oral abstract sessions where the fellows were presenting. He'd be walking around the poster sessions, not with a big team, but by himself. And he would listen to what the fellows and the junior investigators who actually were doing the work had to say. Now, of course, they had no idea who he was, but he was there to ask them questions about the science and to listen. So I was immensely impressed that somebody of his stature who actually wanted to know what the people on the ground had to think. He was always interested in the science, and as importantly, he was interested in the young people who were in the field, who were developing their careers. He always had time to talk to them and answer their questions coming back. As John developed his amazing pipeline of drugs, it was clear for those of us at NIH, and I worked at NIH for a long time, that we would benefit from working with John, not just because he had some great drugs, but also John had a knack of getting really talented people to work with him. And these were really talented scientists, but also the people on the business end were people who understood and were committed to understanding the science, who understood the value of healthcare. And this really put Gilead in a position which was like pharmaceutical companies were 30 years ago, where they're interested in science, they were interested in promoting health. And while obviously Gilead was enormously successful financially, where health and science were really paramount, and the companies were led by scientists. That was the kind of company that Gilead was. And from a science-based organization like NIH, that was the kind of people, the kind of company that we wanted to work with. So John really had a first-rate team, but it was only later that I realized that while those scientists and those business people really provided so many of John's good ideas, it's only later as I got to know John that I realized that a lot of his good ideas about where to go really came from Lilly, but that's really a later part of the story. So as we worked with John on HIV and then from hepatitis C, we were able to really repeat what we had worked with on HIV and hepatitis C. And John had a lot of good perspective on how we could work with him to develop the drugs, both in terms of what kind of data was useful to get the drugs approved, but also how to get the drugs out to the people who really needed them, both the people who would represent a big market share for him and the people who really were a very tiny part of the market, were a very important part of the public health effort for HIV and hepatitis C. So he really was one of the unique people who saw the whole picture. And especially as we focused on getting HIV therapy to all parts of the globe, and as we talked about doing the same thing with hepatitis C, it was impressive how John and his team really focused on the global problem of HIV and hepatitis C, not just on developing drugs and getting them to market. John and Lilly really taught us a lot about how we should approach getting these drugs in the community. And while John was dealing on a global issue, he was always interested in a project that was very important to Sham and to me, which was working with the District of Columbia, which had a terrible problem with HIV and hepatitis C, and how to work with the disadvantaged populations down there, whether they're people with substance use disorder or transgender individuals or people with other problems, including homelessness and lack of insurance. But John clearly was interested in that and provided us with lots of insights as how we could tackle a lot of those populations. Our interest really continued to develop, and in many ways, John's interest evolved as ours did. Although his focus was on infectious diseases, he realized in his work globally and in the work that he joined us with in DC that a lot of the comorbidities of HIV really were not directly the infectious diseases, but were social issues and other medical issues that made it impossible for people to treat their hepatitis C or treat their HIV effectively. And particularly with opioid use disorder, he was a major contributor intellectually, as was Lilly, in how we could deal with opioid use disorder, a project that continues. So John, obviously, in addition to having many personal admirable qualities, in addition to making Gilead the powerhouse it is, what I really admired was that the John Martin I knew in 1996 was the same John Martin I knew in 2021. He was still strolling through the posters at meetings while they still existed before COVID. He was still talking to the younger people. He still saw the big picture. So I miss John as a collaborator. I miss John as a friend, but I think he's left a legacy of a lot of scientists, a lot of people interested in public health who will continue his vision, hopefully with the same breadth. And we look forward to working with Lilly and many of our friends at Gilead and those who have moved on to other places to continue focusing on these issues, which were so important, which he had so much influence on. But I appreciate the opportunity to say this, and particularly appreciate the opportunity to say this while Lilly can listen to all this symposium. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sood. So I just want to mention that I just take a cue from what you told. We out here miss John every day. And let me just mention that Indian Institute of Liver and Digestive Sciences, I would say, might not have come the way it had come through unless we have met John C. Martin. John C. Martin Center for Liver Research and Innovations, where we are talking today, is all thought around the way John made us think around. I'm telling this on behalf of all of us here. It's 8:30 p.m. here, and as you know, COVID is really troubling us in India, and many of us sitting here in this room only out of a I don't know what attachment, it's not explicable to John C. Martin. So I would request Dr. Henry Masood to visit this institute whenever COVID cloud goes away. It carries John's name and it's John's institute. Thank you, Dr. Henry Masood. I would request now Dr. Shyam Kotilil, who is as much, who belongs to JCM Center for Liver Research and Innovations, as I belong. In fact, Shyam and myself have sat together many a times to shape the way this institute should look like. Over to you, Shyam.
Thank you. Thank you, Abhijit. And let me thank you especially for organizing this event on John's memory. It's very personal and touching. I have come to know John much later than many of the speakers here. And the more interactions was basically when my interest in hepatitis C, when John was a CEO. He was not primarily involved with hepatitis C, but he oversaw all those interactions. We were successfully able to work with Gilead on many of the pivotal studies in hepatitis C when I was at NIH is because of his relationship and close trust and friendship with Dr. Mazur. So that really helped us to do all a variety of different studies. However, after that successful collaboration, when John had stepped down as a CEO and still remained as board chairman, he was more interested in doing a lot of philanthropic work. And that's when I very closely worked with him for the last several years. And it really allowed me to understand his vision and how soft-spoken he is, but he's very affirmative and making clear what needs to be done and be able to successfully put people together. And this is a great example that we are all in this meeting, all from different background. We are all here because John put us together. And there are things that Homi Razavi is doing in elimination of hepatitis C, or Abhijit's studies in northeastern India are all great examples of how successful teamwork. And I just like to reflect that when Abhijit had proposed and secured funding to do this northeastern study, John told me, you have to work with Abhijit. And I said, I don't have expertise in this. It seems like a very impossible thing to do. Going to from Wade Institute, and this is not possible. And he said, no, you can do it. So he had that trust in Abhijit's team, they're capable to do it, and my team to be able to work together and that's a classic CEO. That's how you put your teams together. He knew people and he trusted people's ability, and he was able to make sure that they can actually work together to get these things done. And that's one of the amazing capacity of John Martin to do that. And he has to be able to. Another thing that struck me is Dr. Mazur alluded to it, his ability to reach out to young people. And I'll give you an example. The last time I saw John personally was when I took my daughter to a campus tour in Stanford, and we had the opportunity to meet with John and Lily for brunch. And John was talking to my daughter, and a year later, and my daughter said that we was preparing for her college. He said, "This is what John Martin told me to do." And I've tried to tell her many things, and she doesn't listen to anything I say. But John was able to tell her, okay, give her an 18-year-old a vision, a successful model, and how to develop her career. And that's, some people have it, and most of us don't. And that's his legacy and his capacity to be able to reach out to anybody to be able to do that. John has expanded his work as part of the Global Virus Network at the Institute of Human Virology. He was at the board, and he contributed significantly. And I would also like to announce that the GVN is instituting a lectureship, annual lectureship on John's behalf. An official announcement will be coming through. And there's some small things that we can actually do to carry out John's legacy. And I will end saying that, Dr. Mazur alluded this, that our tribute to John is to continue his mission and vision. We're all here, we are busy, we are doing other things, but we dropped everything to do certain things. And John's vision was to translate scientific discoveries into making people's life better. And those are simple things that most people don't do. And we have come together, we have done this, and we have to continue to do that. And that's the best tribute all of us can do for John's legacy. Thank you.
At a very personal level, I just want to mention here that there are many people, and I belong to one such, that we had such deep respects. I had such deep respects and love for John that I used not to be able to express all our words with John. So whenever I had to convey something to John, I used to resort to, obviously, Lily, mostly. And then, if there was anything more to convey to John, I used to talk to a person who at some point told that I remain your single point contact for any issues related to development of Indian Institute of Liver and Digestive Sciences, and subsequently at any of the occasions. So I'm just mentioning of Clifford Samuel, who probably was one of those vibrant persons around whom John built his, I should call it, empire. So I would like Clifford to tell us a few words. Clifford has visited us many a times. You have not seen this building where we are sitting today. It all carries John's touch at every stage. Over to you, Clifford.
Thank you, Abhijit. I look forward to being there and seeing the building. And I was just reflecting on a meeting I think Betty and I had with you in DC. Betty will clarify it, but clearly you had already communicated with Lily and John your vision, and possibly Greg. But then the orders were to go to India and see this area, and Greg, Aaron Brinkworth, and I, and some other folks ended up in Kolkata, and there was just a piece of land with some water that was being pumped out and a cow in one corner. And you laid out the vision, and it was clear from your passion and perseverance that you would accomplish this. So congratulations. I'm not surprised. I was just trying to remember when I met John, but I can't. I joined Gilead in 1996. And it must have been Swami who ultimately introduced me to John, because I was still commuting. I wasn't in California. But, a lot of things have been said about John. An exceptional scientist, an amazing leader, dedicated father, a kind sibling, a patient mentor, a committed and loving life partner. You've heard all of these various attributes ascribe to John. In my heart, what I saw and what I have always felt was that John was always full of grace and compassion. I'm from a poor country in the West Indies, and so when you're from a poor country in the West Indies, you meet a lot of foreigners coming to the country to try and help. They're visiting, but you never really know if they're there because they really care about you, or are they there to advance their own personal gain. But so you develop a sixth sense to know when someone really cares and when someone doesn't. And one of the things that I recognized very early on was that John cared about the poorest of the poor. He really cared about the poorest of the poor. He cared that the poor had access to life-saving medicines that he created, he originated. He cared deeply that the poorest of the poor had access to educational materials. What Betty and I did was really important to him, to make sure not only patients were educated, but the doctors in these far-flung areas had access to education so they could make better decisions in the interests of those in need. And he cared as well about the health system's infrastructure, things that people don't really think about, you know. Health systems similar to the building there in his name, and the institute that many people would have looked at it and say, we cannot go on passion and perseverance, even if it comes from Dr. Abhijit Chowdhury. It doesn't make financial sense. How is he going to get materials? How is he going to get the government to really commit to the land? How is he going to pay for it after it's done? John saw all through those things, and Greg and I were charged with executing and making sure that you could realize your vision, Abhijit, and that has always been, that's what I saw in John, grace and compassion. You mentioned humility, you mentioned global citizen, all of those things are anchored under grace and compassion. And for me, today on his birthday, and as I reflect in my emotional highs and lows, as I reflect on John, I will take grace and compassion and try to live that, because that's what John represented. So I would say, rest in peace, John. Your legacy lives on, and your legacy lives on because you have left a piece of you with all of us here. And so you will not be forgotten. Thank you very much.
I heard your words really, I don't know how to, forgetting John for all of us is just next to impossible. So let's not think around that. I just want to mention, beyond all these discussions that we are having, what he contributed, for India, we are not seeing hepatitis C infected people these days. It's all credit goes to John C. Martin, that he devised a strategy, business strategy, wherein he made hepatitis C antivirals available to Indian citizens at a cost that everybody can touch. And let me tell you that as a clinician, I don't get hepatitis infected people after 5 or 6 or 7 years of development of cephalosporin. And the entire vision, entire credit goes to John C. Martin. So we are grateful to John C. Martin, not only because at ILDS or JCM Center we got him, but I think every Indian citizen got raised from the phenomenal insights, phenomenal human content, phenomenal intent to reach out according to the circumstances that John innovation. This is something called innovation. This is much better than when somebody asks me what are the two greatest innovation you as a hepatogastroenterologist feel like, I'd say development of oral rehabilitation therapy, and then making hepatitis C pills available to Indian citizen at a cost which is affordable for almost everybody. So John C. Martin will be remembered all over, at least in India, for all of this. So I think we are joined this evening and your morning by many colleagues who have been with John for long, and it's not a very formal thing. I think it's very informal. So we are joined by a person who has spent almost his all entire professional life and I think personal life also very closely with John Martin. He is Swami. Swami, would love to hear a few words from you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, John, I met almost 33 years ago when I was at Wesleyan and he was at Bristol Myers. And he always was so gracious when he met you and educated you on the things he knew and wanted to be educated on the things you knew. And that's almost touching. And you form the bond and trust. And because of him, I joined Bristol Myers. And less than 2 years later, I joined Gilead. And my training was in theoretical chemistry, and I managed to learn a lot of things from John. And he always said from the beginning that you have to make a difference. And that is the essence of it, is that he used to talk about red pill, blue pills. He said, it's not, if there is a red pill, you don't have to create a blue pill. The more important thing is you do the next transformation. And luckily, and also because of John's perseverance, we had managed to create a large number of transformational drugs. Transformation is when you change the field, and hopefully by various means we have managed to change the nature of HIV treatment, HBV treatment, and HCV treatment. The one thing, it was clear that John always worried about the patients is that we had Adifavir selling very well in HBV, where he put the pressure on all of us to get Viriad to become the drug because it was safer and more effective. And he didn't care about the the cost differential and other things, he was very insistent. We have to, because we know it that it's a better drug, we got to get it to the people. And it was always that question: transformation of the disease and transformation of people's lives is what, and making a difference in their lives is always what he wanted. And I'm grateful to have had all the years of interaction with John. And as Clifford said, it's how we carry out his memory is what's going to determine John's legacy, and we should not forget that. May he rest in peace.
I think Swami has been, of all we are here, I think Swami and I think Bill is also with us. They had worked with, the term called worked with is belittling their association with John. So I would request Bill to tell us his thoughts, his feelings on this day. Over to you, Bill.
You're on mute, Bill. Yes, good.
One thing, so- one thing I'm really sure about is that John is not resting in peace. You know, my experience goes back with John to 1991 when John hired me at Gilead, 3 months after Swami. I had worked previously at Syntex Research in the mid 80s. And although I didn't overlap with John, I missed him by about 9 months before he left to BMS. John left a lot of wake at Syntex. And I certainly heard a lot about John from people in the building known as R1 back then. John really mixed up things. And when I started at Gilead, I went back and talked to some of my Syntex friends about John, and you know, all of them, you know, told me, well, get ready, you know, to put your seatbelt on, because John, you know, had the reputation, being an inventor of ganciclovir at Syntex, of shaking things up, of moving things forward. And I, you know, and that was day one when I started. You know, John had a vision in HIV that we were going to become the leaders in HIV, and we were going to provide the best medicines to the people of the world. And you know, we were a small 40-person company. Swami, you remember this, and how we were going to get there when you had BMS, you had Merck, you had Glaxo, you had Burroughs Wellcome. How are we going to do that? And, you know, John led us there. He led us there in HIV. He led us there in hepatitis B. And he led us there in hepatitis C, obviously. And one of the differences, and it's been alluded to, that John's passion, his real desire, was to bring medicines to the world. And I think John used the company, you know, as an excuse to do that. Sort of a reverse of what you often see is that, you know, commercial companies will provide drugs to the developing world almost as a PR, as a secondary thought. That wasn't with John. What I really believe fundamentally is John developed drugs to treat the most people, the most people. And John always said, you've got to bring the drugs to where the people are. You saw that in HIV. John committed, we were this tiny company. He committed to bringing Viriad to Africa where the disease was, knowing we weren't going to make any money in Africa. He had this vision of transferring, HIV manufacturing to, Indian generics who knew how to bring drugs to the developing world. We didn't. And that continued on with hepatitis B, that continued on with hepatitis C. And to me, that gave me, whatever we were going to charge in the developing world was irrelevant, because we were treating the most patients, for essentially free. We were treating the most patients free throughout the world with our either the patents that we turned over or the drugs that we were manufacturing. And that always, kept me, committed to Gilead, committed to John. John was a truly game-changing person in our world, and we're not going to be the same. But again, I think that, as I joked, heaven will not be the same with John in it. I expect changes. So, John, thank you for everything, and thank you for asking me to speak.
So all of us here and overseas keep on thanking John every moment that we keep on moving on. As we are towards the end of this program, I just thought of that whether I've got the courage and I have got the, whether I should request Lily to send any message that he has got to tell us on behalf of John C. Martin. So I leave it to Lily, because for us, John and Lily are synonymous. Lily, you would like to tell us anything this evening?
Hi, Abhijit. Thank you. You put me on the spot just like John would all the time, right? Clifford, Bill, Swami, you all know how this happens. So I think, Abhijit, I congratulate for stepping in for John to put people on the spot, such as myself. I wasn't prepared to say anything, but I really don't have much to add. After John, Henry, everyone said stuff. I just want to say a heartfelt thank you.
To get the message that John
for all the kindness.
It's
and,
all unprepared.
Yeah.
Abhijit, 1 second. Lily was still going on. Go ahead, Lily.
Yeah, just heartfelt thank you for your kind emotion. We're not alone on this. To be very practical, like what Bill said, John's watching us, and this is exactly the kind of things that, how many of us have been in a conference or a meeting, not only that he would go to a poster of a young scientist, he actually would turn around and stop the people looking at other posters, say, hey, have you seen this? You should come. And so as soon as there's a crowd, in the second he's gone and he's starting his mixing all over again somewhere else. And he's like that with us every day. I feel it. I know you feel it too. I think the best way to honor John is to take the gifts that he's given each of us. I know that you think of things differently because he inspired you, or you do things differently because he's inspired you. A part of his spirit is in us, and it's up to us to not ever give that up And there's no blueprint of what John did. Everything that people talked about that he did, he had a plan in his head 5-10 years ago. You all know this. And he doesn't do things exactly the same way. He didn't do things exactly the same way, except the principle is do the right thing that you can help people live a better life, a sustainable, improvable, a better life. So I think it's up to each of us to band together to do what we can using the gifts that John's given us. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. I think your very words that all of us should think together to translate John's vision that he had shown through his work. And obviously, we out here at Kolkata and at Indian Institute of Liver and Digestive Sciences, John C. Martin Center for Liver Research and Innovations are all committed to rise up to address what invisibly John would keep on telling us every moment. I think we would stop here this evening. And on behalf of, again, John C. Martin Center, Liver Foundation West Bengal, and Indian Institute of Liver and Digestive Sciences, all the workers and everybody out here, doctors, nurses, and every worker out here, we all would keep on remembering John. It's not only today is his birthday, we keep on remembering John all through the time that this institute would exist. And on behalf of India's country's citizens, I would like to tell that John C. Martin was the wonders that John C. Martin did for this country would be remembered forever. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I think we keep on joining again and again, and every year we would organize John C. Martin's birthday, and we will again request you to join us on the 7th May. With that, I will stop here. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you.